Hi, Captain Dan here at Santa Barbara. Not Santa Barbara Island this time, but the city of Santa Barbara. We're on a mission to finish off the cruising guide and record the anchorages along the coast of the mainland that we've never hit before. So today, Santa Barbara, and then on down the line, Refugio, Zacate, and eventually Coho Anchorage. Numerous oil wells dot the area leading up to Santa Barbara. In addition to the oil wells, fog is a consideration, as are the high-speed crew boats that service these oil wells. It's a really good idea to get out your large-scale chart of the area as you approach. It's a little confusing when you get in here, but our first point of recognition is the fair water buoy. So as we close Santa Barbara, it is very difficult to see due to fog. This is a consistent condition in the summertime. The saddleback ridge you see in the front is the giveaway. That's the city, and you can barely make out the yacht harbor just below it to the right. We're about 2.5 miles out. We killed a little time, got closer, weather cleared up a little bit, and found the fair water buoy. This is the first time I've ever seen anyone on the fair water buoy. Apparently the Harbor Patrol giving the Coast Guard a little help with maintenance that day. So we're heading into the anchorage at Santa Barbara, not the harbor. And the anchorage lies to the east, to the right in this picture, of the wharf. And you see it's demarcated by the dashed lines. We've stopped for a minute in the anchorage outside of the harbor. The harbor is a different issue, but the anchorage is large, normally protected from the west, and is open from April to October. If you need more information about the harbor, you can call the harbor master. He will also give you information on reservations for going into the harbor and finding a berth. As you see, this is a large open roadstead. There are sewer lines and a discharge from the desalination plant. Look for the buoys, which you can see out in the picture here, and stand clear. But we're on our way now to investigate the rest of the anchorages. See you down the line. And we're off, heading west to Goleta Point and the anchorage at the University of California, Santa Barbara. The first landmark we're looking for is the Santa Barbara Light. If you've never seen it, it is not recognizable as light, so we're going to give you a view of it right here in a second, in addition to some really fabulous real estate. Okay, it'll be coming up here in a second, really close to the point, and we'll zoom in here. It is the most nondescript lighthouse in the entire country. It actually looks like a wreck, but that's where it is, and there's a light up in there. Take two, Goleta. We're in Goleta Anchorage now, just a few miles west of Santa Barbara Point, between Santa Barbara Point and Goleta Point. It is a fair weather anchorage. We're in about 25 feet of water just off the pier. It would serve to be a little bit farther out if there's any kind of weather. It's a fair weather anchorage, to be sure. Even on a day that is really flat calm, we're rocking around quite a bit. If you try to seek shelter up against the cliffs to the west, you run the danger of getting in too close to shore and too shallow. The landmarks here are pretty clear. You see Santa Barbara above the cliffs, and the airport in the flat part here. You can probably see the rotating antenna. And if you're coming from the west, you'll also spot the radio towers in the eastern part of the anchorage. The landscape has changed a lot since Fagan updated his book the last time. The only thing that was out here then was the Sloan Tower, a slim pencil structure. So you see Santa Barbara has grown. One thing that's still here is the pier, which marks the eastern boundary of the anchorage. Park at the end of it there has some recreational facilities, toilets, and so forth. But Fagan advises it's a pretty rough ride in your dinghy. Get prepared to be wet. Captain Dan here at Refugio Anchorage. Refugio is about 20 miles west of Santa Barbara. It's a fair weather anchorage, and fortunately we have fair weather today. We're in about 20 feet of water, a sand bottom. Fagan recommends that if it turns snotty in here, get out. So we are ready for that. On the other hand, we've got 2 anchors down to counteract the swing and minimize our rolling moment. Finding Refugio coming from the east is pretty easy. Refugio Point sticks out, and I'll give you a picture of that in a moment. And the railroad bridge directly behind me tells you you're in the right spot. There's a campground here, and you can go ashore, but the point is don't anchor right off the campground. You want to be a little bit deeper water. Right now we're in about a little over 20 feet, which is not very much considering we have a 6-foot keel. Fortunately, low tide now. We expect the tide to come up another 5 feet, and we'll never be lower than we are right now. Finding your way into the anchorage isn't too difficult. The chart doesn't reveal just how sharp Refugio Point is, but we're going to see that here in a second in some video that we shot on the way in. What you're looking for is the railroad overpass and the interstate overpass. They're both pretty significant. And then you'll spot the campground, and about that time, you're there. Okay, so here's the point, which is really spectacular at sunset. And here's the campground. As you can see, there's not much of a swell going in there, so you can probably do that without getting wet. And some friendly campers, friendly but not great kayakers. The collisions were 1 every 2 seconds. We rely on Brian Fagan's book for our base information, and we explore and update. But one thing we've noted is that Brian does not talk about the right vintage in the proper anchorage. And now we are going to go experiment with that a bit. Okay, we're rolling.
Hey. Hi, this is the bosun. So last night we had decided on this anchorage. It looked great. Our first thought was just put 1 hook down, but we decided on 2 hooks to be on the safe side. Of course, that turned out to be a great idea. Now, after we had the 2 hooks down, we decided that the Viognier was the perfect vintage for this anchorage. We drank a bottle of Viognier, and sure enough, the wind came up. We had a little bit of canyon breeze out of here, and it turned out that we went for the rosé after that. And the rosé turned out to be the perfect addition to that, and so we actually recommend this as a 2-bottle anchorage, a Viognier and a rosé. You can't go wrong.
The next spot you might stop is Gaviota. It's an enormous canyon, really not visible on this chart, and the pier is just a pencil point right here. It's a good day anchorage, and we hesitated here for a moment, though we didn't drop the hook. Here's the picture. The trestle goes over it, really easy to see, and the anchorage lies to the left here, west of the pier, and about 25 feet of water. This is also known as Alcatraz, which is Spanish for pelican. We would anchor in about 25 feet of water. There's a sand bottom here with pretty good holding and a ton of pelicans. Keep going if you can. Keep going. Winds can come out of the canyon and can be very hard.
Up here.
Fagan recommends you get out at the first sign of a blow coming up. And on to Hollister Ranch. Hollister Ranch is known locally for its inhospitality to itinerant surfers. It's a beautiful stretch of beach, and the best way to get there is by boat. There are 2 anchorages in Fagan, Zacate and Santa Anita. Frankly, we were unable to find either of these anchorages. It was a flat, calm day, so you couldn't make it out any place that was better one way or another for weather. Zacate's in a small bay, which was indistinguishable from the rest of the area. There's an extreme amount of kelp starting at about a half a mile out and going all the way to the beach. It would be difficult to anchor in here even if you could find your anchorages. It's a beautiful spot. We would love to bring our surfer friends over here. And there's some very impressive real estate. You can't get here unless you live here, and of course, unless you come by boat. And there's some wildlife we don't frequently see in Southern California. Sea otters. They were found just inside of Point Conception, probably ran about 2 miles width, and they stopped.
Doing the backstroke.
Some more wildlife were the itinerant surfers. Guys here in a boat smaller than their surfboards and some pretty big seas. We've already been at anchor at Coho, but we wanted to give you a look at Point Conception as if you were coming from the west. So we steamed to the west to get a good look at the Point Conception. And we started out in calm conditions, flat, calm conditions. And in about 20 minutes, you can see that it kicked up to a couple of feet. Not too daunting yet, but a few more hours of wind like this, and it'll be wild. Take a quick look at the anchorage. Right around Government Point, it notes a wreck and numerous rocks near datum. If you stay at about 20 feet, 25 feet, you'll be in good shape. Note Zone 9, which is part of the Pacific Missile Test Range, specifically Vandenberg hot area. You can call that number and get info on when it is hot. Okay, we've turned around and headed back down towards Coho Anchorage from Point Conception. We're less than a mile offshore, and we're coming up to Government Point here. The waves and the wind wrap around this corner pretty ferociously at times, and we're remaining well clear. We're going to go into the anchorage now and take a look. Captain Dan here at Coho Anchorage. Coho is a place you either use as a jumping off place to get around Point Conception, or if you've got the crap beaten out of you at Point Conception, you come here to rest up. We're actually going to avoid all that and go straight to San Miguel Island. Coho is a place that you will eventually come if you're going to head for San Francisco or points north. Finding it is a piece of cake. You go around Point Conception and then you're looking for Government Point. Let's take a look at Government Point out here. Going to be coming from that direction around the point, and a really good landmark is this little clump of trees, cypress trees here. And as you come down the way, we're looking for Fagan's railroad culvert. Well, it's still here, but it's buried in sand. You can see, if you look down the cove here, that we're just about in the middle of it. We anchored in about 25 feet of water. It's a sand bottom. It was blowing fairly hard last night, and we let out 150 feet of chain, which was quite a bit of overkill. Better over than under, of course. The landscape also gives you an idea as you come in by the railroad trestle. These are distinctive hills over to the right. You'll find your spot, and it's not real important that you find this exact spot, but that you get in the western edge of the cove. There are a couple of buoys just offshore. Hard to know whether they're going to be there all the time. There's one that was pictured in Fagan's 2002 book that's still apparently here or back in position. We'll go by that and give you a picture of that. You've undoubtedly heard that Point Conception is known as the Cape Horn of North America. But just to add a little bit of emphasis to that, here's something we found as we were cruising around the anchorage. I went on Google and I Googled wrecks at Point Conception, and there were more than a dozen of them over the years. So beware, take heed, watch the weather, don't do anything crazy. In preparation for the trip, in addition to figuring out your vintages, check out the cruising guide at sailchannelislands.com and take a close look at the Coast Pilot, which is a NOAA publication. If you can find one, get a copy of Brian Fagan's excellent cruising guide, probably available on Amazon.com. Well, have a great trip, and if you've got any questions, give us a call at 805-750-7828. I'll see you on the water.